Hey guys, welcome back to Mall Crawler 1989. Yep, two vids in 1 week. It's like Christmas in July, except for it's August, but whatever. You know what I mean. This vid is going to be about repairing my Clifford intake, my beloved Clifford. Um, Unfortunately, one of the alignment tabs for the alignment pins on the cylinder head snapped. It's what happens. They get really brittle. When you go from a 258 head to a 4.0 head, you have to basically shave the underneath because the intake pore on 4.0 head is taller. So, you don't have much meat left there. And it was about to go anyhow, as you can see here. Also, I got some update on my stroker build. And yeah, that's still going. I was waiting on parts from Newcomer, and I got a kind of a crazy story about that too. But anyhow, I'll do that at the end of the vid. Very excited about that. All right, so let's get into fixing the Clifford intake and the alignment pins, or the alignment crescent thingies, whatever, tabs, the alignment tabs. So first thing I did is I'm going to use JB Weld for this. So you have to drill out I used the screw, a number 6x1/4, number 6x1/2. A little screw that I use these small screws for kick plates on commercial doors. So if you work in an office building and you need to do this, steal a screw from a kick plate. You want to use a roll pin or a screw or something like that to basically give the JB Weld some structure, because makes it a little bit stronger. Also, make sure that if it doesn't fully stick to the intake or fully stick to the aluminum, it has something to grab onto. So you totally want to do that. I marked my drill bit to make sure I didn't go too deep. If you go too deep, though, obviously, just get a die grinder, and once you install it, shave out the bit that goes into the intake runner. Not the end of the world. At least I don't think it is. One thing I did pay attention to when it came to measurements was where the dowel pin is, right? So the hole, you can see the hole. I did not want the screw, or if you use a roll pin or whatever you choose to, I did not want that going into the hole where the dowel pin would be, simply because filing JB Weld is a lot faster and easier than steel or zinc. So I didn't want to run into file two types of material. You can kind of run into trouble with that. So I try to get some rough measurements. The intake exhaust gasket, it's symmetrical, so to speak. You can flip it both ways. So you just, if you have one good side, try to span it off the other side. And this is just for like rough fitting. Then I get some cellophane. I don't want to ruin that beautiful table of mine. It's an heirloom, man. Before I mix up JB Weld, I cleaned up the area a little bit with some choke cleaner, some carb cleaner. I didn't go ham on it. It's not like I scrubbed it or anything. You can see it's still a dirty mess. Here I tried to do like a professional job and make it look good, but even though no one ever sees it, and it was not worth it. So I would not suggest doing that. Nothing really sticks to the intake and all that jazz. Plus, this isn't really structural. What it is once it lands on the pins, if you've ever installed one of these, once it lands on the pins, it's just there for alignment. You don't even have to have anything that matches perfectly the alignment pin on the head. You just need it to center up to keep it up and down. You don't even need to really worry about left and right. But anyhow, doesn't need to be that perfect, right? It's just there for height, and then once you clamp it all down, that's really what gives it all structure, to hold the carb and the weight of the intake and all that jazz. So here I'm mixing up some JB Weld. Put a little bit on the screw. You'll never get that screw out. And I just layer it on. Like I said, wasn't really looking for perfection. If I had half a brain, I actually would have poured some of that into the other side, so the other side doesn't snap. I would have poured it into the original 258 dowel pin alignment pin hole, but I did not. So whatever. Be smarter than Rusty, right? So here I'm clamping on the gasket to try to get everything even. And you can see where I actually have a line from the old gasket. I have a Newcomer copper gasket, copper intake gasket, and that left a line on there, and whatever, you can use that for alignment too. If you have a mark from your old intake gasket. So I line it, I draw out the hole, kind of give me an idea, draw out a bigger hole just to get started. That is not the size of the dowel pin. And then I grind a little bit off because I like being able to rest it down on the pins, not fully connected in. But that's just me, you know. I guess if you were going to do this, you could actually do it like the stock ones and how it's supposed to be, but whatever. So there's a whole bunch of filing, fitting, filing. And I'll give you a tip. So on the intake exhaust gasket, the holes for the alignment pins, they're actually the exact same size as a Sharpie paint pen. So if you have two of those, put those through the hole. Don't keep the intake like I did, bottom, the correct orientation. Flip it upside down and use gravity. And this way, you don't have to try to. It feels like you're holding 5 things at once, and you need to be an octopus. You can just let gravity just take over, and it'll just sit there with the dowel pins resting, using the Sharpie paint pens as dowels, basically. Imagine that. Yeah, I'm not the smartest one. So you file, you fit, you file, you fit, and you want to try to get them at both sides as even as possible, or at least the same. And that's what I ended up with. That's my patch. I know, ugly. Again, no one sees it. I'm kind of lucky. I have a 7120 head just sitting around that I used on my 250A a long time ago. I have dynos of it. This is actually the head that I used. So I dry fitted on there too. Got out the calipers, and I did number 1 intake and number 6 intake. Just up because the intake 6 is a little bit higher than the actual flat edge of the cylinder head. So I got that measurement, and 0.430 and 0.388. So, or 0.39, we'll just call it that. So that's 0.04 difference. Pretty good. So there you go. It's patched up. I can use it again. Reason I wanted to use it was to test the real world test between the Offenhauser dual plane. Yeah, I always want to say dual plenum. I'm not hey man, if you look online, I'm not the only one that messes that up. It's not dual plenum. It is dual. Wait, not even dual plane. It's dual port. Dual port. Basically, test that up against this Clifford, like at around 1500 with that's what it's supposed to do. It's what it's supposed to be for. And I want to test that up against the Offenhauser. And if my Clifford one, basically beats the hell out of the Offenhauser, I want to throw the Clifford back on, especially for my stroker build. So let's get into that. So I got a notification today from Newcomer that my parts have been shipped for the roller cam, Torrington bearing. What else I get? The button, the cam gear for the driving gear for the distributor, all that jazz. And when I talked to him a few months back, he said, yeah, when I get it, I'm going to drop a YouTube video. When I get these cams, these roller cams, I'm going to drop a YouTube video to dyno them. And I was like, oh, sweet. So I got the notification, hopped on YouTube, and checked it out. And then I forgot the gentleman. I'll post the video. I forgot the gentleman that runs a channel that does whatever. Oh, man, I can't think of it. Dude from like Carolinas. Monster something like that. It was talking about how Mr. Newcomer is coming out with a new intake. And I was like, oh, no kid. Now, Keith and I had talked about, I told him I abandoned a plan of a stroker build with ITBs and stuff like that. I was like, dude, I don't have the money for it. I don't have the, I don't have the time for it, all that jazz. And it was going to be in a dropped XJ. Maybe one day. Hopefully it's that. That'd be freaking rad. He's looking for casting for this new intake. In the meanwhile, I actually am working on an intake on my own. I've been really jamming on Bane racing and like line of sight and intake ports and the high, the high side, the low side, all that jazz. Really interesting stuff. In the description, I'll drop a link to one of his vids too, just so you can catch up and then subscribe to him as well. And so I had an idea. I was like, I think I got an idea. And basically, a tilted up intake. You can see here, inline six intakes are, they're always flat, or most of them, at least for the Jeep. They're always flat and they always go in. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I never really like thought about changing it or whatever. But then I got thinking, I'm like, whoa, dude, like, what if you just tilted it? And there you go. So right here, this is the camera flat. You can see the light. But if I go up with the camera, you have a straight line of sight to the high side or the fast side, whatever, of the intake valve. Now, I don't know what kind of angle I can actually fit under the hood of my YJ. Probably a good amount, but I don't know. We'll see. So this right here is what I'm thinking of. I will not do it with the Clifford intake just because I'd have to machine the top of the Clifford intake, and I don't know. What I'm gonna do, my idea is to basically chop up a log manifold and shave the intake runners, tilt them up, and then build a plenum around that. Yeah, that's the plan. I don't know if Newcomer's coming out with that type of intake or if he's going to do ITB, something like that. But nonetheless, I was like, what are the chances that I literally had this idea probably like, I don't know, 4 days ago, 4 days ago? It happens. And it's pretty cool and exciting to me. So there you go. But like I said, I'm going to compare the Clifford with the Offenhauser first. So anyways, click subscribe. Thank you for watching. Yeah. And hope you guys have a good weekend. Thanks. Bye.